This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
Algeria has called at the UN Security Council for striking a fair balance between the fight against the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and the peaceful use of nuclear energy. At the UN Security Council session devoted to Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ammar Benjama has called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon, stressing the need to implement Security Council Resolution 1701. And the UN Under-Secretary General for Political and Peace-Building Affairs, Rosemary DiCarlo, has said that the Zionist aggressions against Lebanon, Syria, and the occupied Palestinian territories indicate a region is evolving, or the situation in the region is evolving dangerously, and that is on the brink of all-out war. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First in our news, Algeria has called at the UN Security Council to strike a fair balance between the fight against the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and the peaceful use of nuclear energy. We must strike an appropriate balance between the need for peaceful use of nuclear technologies as a tool for socio-economic development and the imperative to protect the world from their misuse. The right to use these technologies and equipment for peaceful purposes should be clearly reaffirmed, underlined Algeria's representative at the meeting of the 1540 Committee of the Security Council established to implement the resolution on the fight against the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. In this respect, the Algerian representative stressed the importance of international cooperation to ensure the implementation of Resolution 1540 adopted by the Security Council in 2004, while calling on the international community to help strengthen the economic capacities of developing countries through funding aimed at reducing the technological gap. In the same context, Algeria reiterated the need for worldwide global coordination to ensure the implementation of this resolution, which aims to make the world safer and prevent weapons of mass destruction to not fall into the wrong hands. The support project for stakeholders for the inclusive insurance in Algeria has been launched as part of the Global Initiative on Insurance and Risk Financing Facilitations launched by the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP. Presiding over the opening ceremony of the workshop dedicated to the launch of the project, Finance Minister Aziz Faid underlined that the project aims to build the capacity of players in the insurance sector, develop inclusive insurance solutions, raise public awareness of the importance of this field, and promote mechanisms that are adapted for risk financing. The Symposium of African Senates kicked off Thursday in Yamoussoukro, Ivory Coast, in parallel with the opening of the legislative session of the Ivorian Senate, with the participation of members of the Council of the Nation, according to a council press release. The meeting opened in the presence of the Vice President of the Republic of Ivory Coast and speakers of parliaments and parliamentary delegations from Africa and Europe, under the theme, The Idea of the Senate and the Senatorial Experience in Africa. The symposium will discuss the project to create a union of African Senates and the possibility of announcing it, as well as presenting the experiences of certain African countries adopting the bicameral system, including Algeria. Senator Mouloud Mbarek Flouti, accompanied by Senator Brahim Rouma, is taking part in this symposium as the representative of the Speaker of the Council of the Nation. The operation to repatriate Algerian nationals in Lebanon started today in implementation of the instructions of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, concerning the care for members of the Algerian community settled in this country. The operation has been initiated in line with a plan put in place for this purpose. The Algerian nationals were transferred from Rafiq Hariri International Airport in Beirut to Cairo International Airport on 2 flights specially mobilized for this operation. The airline Air Algérie will transport them to Algeria at a later date, according to a statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad. This is the second operation of its kind, following the one carried out in August 2024, when more than 125 Algerians were repatriated. And Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ammar Benjama, has called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon, stressing the need to implement Security Council Resolution 1701. Benjama told the members of the Security Council meeting devoted to discussing the situation in Lebanon that the first steps towards achieving overall calm in the region is an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon, adding that Algeria considers that the only way to ensure stability in Lebanon and peace in the region is the full and immediate implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701. This, he went on to say, includes the deployment of Lebanese army on all Lebanese territory within the internationally recognized borders and the complete withdrawal of Zionist forces from Lebanese lands. Let's listen to Mr. Benjama.
The first step to reaching a comprehensive calm in the region is an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and in Lebanon. The true and enduring threat to the Middle East is and continue to be the Israeli occupation of Arab lands in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Syria.
Meanwhile, Ambassador Benjama hailed the central role of UNIFIL in safeguarding stability in the Middle East, expressing his deep concern at the establishment by the Zionist occupation forces of an assembly area adjacent to the UNIFIL position in the town of Marun al-Ras. He also condemned the Zionist forces targeting of 3 positions used by UNIFIL, wounding 2 of its peace soldiers. Let's listen to him again.
Algeria highly values and commends the pivotal role of UNIFIL in safeguarding regional stability, especially in the face of this relentless aggression. We are deeply concerned about the establishment by the Israeli forces of a staging area adjacent to the UNIFIL position in the town of Marun al-Ras, and we condemn the Israeli forces for deliberate firing on 3 positions used by UNIFIL, injuring 2 of our peacekeepers.
Recalling that Algeria has already warned that the military actions of the Zionist occupation power will not be limited to Gaza and the West Bank, Mr. Benjama reiterated that the aggression will not stop in Lebanon. He emphasized that the real and persistent threat to the Middle East is and will remain the continued occupation by the Zionist forces of Arab lands in Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria. And the UN Under-Secretary General for Political and Peace-Building Affairs, Rosemarie DiCarlo, has said that the Zionist aggressions against Lebanon, Syria, and the occupied Palestinian territories indicate a region that is evolving dangerously and that is on the brink of an all-out war. Speaking at the Security Council session devoted to the situation in the Middle East, DiCarlo said that our collective failure to end the violence and bloodshed is reprehensible, calling on the Zionist entity to cease its bombing of Lebanon and withdraw its ground forces from there. DiCarlo further underlined that humanitarian workers, medical personnel, and journalists should not be targeted, stressing the need to protect United Nations personnel, including peacekeepers along the Blue Line, who work in such dangerous conditions around the world. She concluded her presentation by saying, "We must now make every effort to reverse this cycle of violence and save the lives on the region from the brink of an all-out war." For his part, the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, said that the Zionist army's targeting of the headquarters of the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, was unacceptable and unjustified. The European official expressed his condemnation and rejection of this unacceptable act, which has no justification. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni also condemned the targeting by the Zionist army on Thursday of the headquarters of the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, calling the attack unacceptable. Meloni said the Italian government had officially protested the Zionist entity and reiterated firmly that what is happening near the UNIFIL base is unacceptable. Meloni explained that the Italians continue to work to achieve stability in the region in line with the United Nations mandate. Earlier on Thursday, UNIFIL said in a statement that the Zionist army tank had fired on its headquarters in southern Lebanon, wounding 2 Indonesian peacekeepers, saying Zionist troops had fired repeatedly on its positions. The Lebanese Ministry of Health announced on Thursday that the death toll from the Zionist aggression against Lebanon since October 8, 2023 has risen to 2,169 martyrs and 10,212 wounded. The representative of the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas in Algeria, Youssef Hamdan, has underlined in Tismsialt that the Palestinian resistance against the Zionist occupation is inspired by the glorious Algerian Revolution. Speaking at a historic conference entitled The Impact of the Algerian Revolution on the Steadfastness of the Palestinian Resistance, organized by the Provincial Office of Al-Irshad Wal-Islah Association at the House of Culture, Mouloud Qasim Naid Belqasem, Youssef Hamdan underlined that the Palestinian people firmly resisted the Zionist occupation, which abandoned all its plans 1 year after the flood of Al-Aqsa. He added that the Palestinian people do not accept colonialism, which cannot impose its will on us, stressing that what has been taken by force can only be recovered by force of arms, as Algeria did to recover its independence against the French colonial army. And the World Food Programme has said that it is no longer able to distribute food in the governorate of northern Gaza due to a shortage of supplies as a result of the year-long Zionist aggression. This comes in the light of the severe restrictions imposed by the Zionist entity on the entry of aid into the Gaza Strip, which makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to provide a humanitarian response. In a statement posted on social networks, the World Food Programme said that the lack of supplies in Gaza is forcing us to stop the distribution of food parcels in October. There is no distribution, and the bakeries in southern and central Gaza are short of flour. For the 5th consecutive day, the Zionist army has subdued the Palestinians in the northern regions of Gaza, particularly the camp of Jabalia, to a ground siege, while bombing their homes as part of its aggression against the Gaza Strip since October 7, 2023. Still in the Middle East region, the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF has announced a second series of vaccinations against polio in the war-torn Gaza Strip, the scene of a devastating Zionist genocidal war that has lasted for more than a year now. Saad Bouazi has more details in this subject.
The second polio vaccination campaign in the Gaza Strip has been confirmed. It will start on 14th October and will vaccinate 590,000 children under the age of 10, said UNICEF Executive Director Catherine Russell on social networks. Stating that specific humanitarian breaks for certain areas have been agreed, Catherine Russell called for these pauses to be respected, without which it is impossible to vaccinate children. She also announced that vitamin A supplements would be given to children to boost their immune systems, as the children of Gaza live in extremely disastrous hygiene and sanitation conditions in the context of the Zionist aggression that has been going on for more than a year. Thanks to the additional vaccination equipment and coolers that arrived Wednesday, UNICEF is ready to deliver and vaccinate children in order to stop the transmission of polio, she said. On 16 August, the Palestinian Ministry of Health reported the first case of polio in the Gaza Strip. In collaboration with the World Health Organization, the Palestinian Ministry of Health, UNICEF, and the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, have launched a polio vaccination campaign targeting more than 600,000 children under the age of 10 in the besieged Gaza Strip. The first wave of vaccinations was completed on 16 September with a vaccination coverage rate of 90%.
And in the Western Sahara file, MP Mohamed Wakil, member of the Algerian Western Sahara Parliamentary Friendship Group, has condemned the illegal exploitation of Western Sahara's wealth by the Moroccan occupation. Let's listen to more with our colleague Saad Bouazi.
MP Mohamed Wakli was speaking on the second day of the annual meeting of the UN's Fourth Commission, which specializes in special political issues and decolonization, held at the United Nations headquarters in New York, and which began its work on Tuesday by listening to statements on the issue of the decolonization of Western Sahara. Weekly highlighted all the forms of illegal exploitation of the Sahrawi people's wealth and natural resources by the Moroccan occupation, underlining that this was a blatant violation of UN resolutions, notably Resolution 1803 on permanent sovereignty over natural resources. He added that Morocco was continuing its unjust exploitation of the Sahrawi people's wealth, which it is now using as an economic weapon or even a means of pressure to blackmail more countries in an attempt to legitimize its presence in the occupied territories, recalling in the same context the 2024 report by the International Observatory Western Sahara Resource Watch, in which it had denounced Morocco's continued illegal extraction of phosphate from the occupied Sahrawi territories. In this respect, the MP welcomed the landmark ruling by the EU Court of Justice invalidating the Morocco-EU trade agreements on the basis that Western Sahara is a distinct and separate territory from Morocco that does not fall under its sovereignty. The MP also recalled Algeria's constant position on the Western Sahara issue, which is based on the principles of international legality and the UN resolutions in favor of the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination.
And finally, the national football team has defeated its Togolese counterpart 5-1 in a match played yesterday at the 19th of May 1960 or 56 Stadium in Annaba for the third day of the qualifications for the African Cup of Nations CAN 2025. The Desert Foxes will travel to face Togo next Monday for their fourth round match. A victory in that game would secure their early qualifications for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. With this, we come to the end of it. Time now for our weekly program. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Hello to your weekly program, Destination Algeria. I'm Jamal Simani. There are a number of great destinations in Algeria that waiting to be discovered. A curious mixture of cultures and influences. Algeria has something interesting to see in just about every city. The country is also the first largest on the African continent, so you can be sure that there are plenty of towns and cities to visit. Let's visit